Hello everyone, Krydax here, and welcome to a special episode, a base tour. It has been a long time, 100 hours roughly, we're a little over 200 now, since we did the last base tour, and I wanted to kind of show you guys what 200 hours in pyanodon's might look like. Everyone's base is very different, but this is mine, and I love it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to work through the milestones that we've completed since the last one, and you can kind of set it to, or I don't remember where the sort button is to show only completed ones. Where did I do that? It might be in the actual mod settings, or maybe there's a button somewhere. But anyway, so we can look through all the ones that have happened since 100 hours. I believe we completed Niobium as kind of one of the final things that we did, or the thing that we did in the last 100-hour stream. And so now in the 200-hour stream, we'll look through all the things we've done since then. The train base has really picked up. I mean, look at the size of this thing. It goes all the way up to here, all the way out to there for this flora patch, which we needed in large quantities for our automation science. And we just finished setting up Pi2 science, which is a huge milestone in pyanodon's. It has all kinds of ingredients, many of which are quite expensive and complex. And we've got our new science facility over here, which actually has all 4 packs, which is really exciting. So our first research that we're doing is worker robot speed. But on to the milestones. The next thing we got was nichrome and logistics bots. So we did that back at the main base. Nichrome is actually not complex. It's just chromium and nickel and some nitrogen. And we needed that for the logistics bots, which we were making right here. But we made the auto mall since then. So why don't I introduce you to the auto mall? Now's a good time. The auto mall is a work of art and also a work of spaghetti and circuit nonsense that just happens to work. Basically what this thing does is you can put in requests via, circuit signals. So this is kind of my requests for things I just want to have on hand. And I've kind of categorized things a little bit here. But then you can also, this is like 3 sections for individual wish lists. So what I can do is Helmod has the ability now to just click on this button and you can get what is essentially like a wish list already done. And I can just paste that over one of these and now it will move all of those buildings into the buffer chest. And then I can just come over and pick stuff up from the buffer chest and move on with my life. There's also this thing which will sometimes more gets delivered to the chest than you wanted. So this, I can turn that on real quick and then turn it back off and it will remove the excess items so that I'll get exactly the count of buildings that I wanted for my wish list. So I also have this one set on temp crafting A, which is in my logistics. So I can start making my wish list from my own inventory. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, what the auto mall does here is it essentially passes the signal of what's wanting to be built through each block of buildings. And it's so funny, you need 2 assemblers. One of them has to read the recipe, the ingredients for the recipe, and the other one's actually reading the contents that are inside of it. And this is so that it only makes 1 building at a time and it doesn't request more items than it needs. So it's not having to constantly request like a building's worth of ingredients, but then it starts filling up, so then it requests more ingredients, but then it finishes making the building, so it switches to another recipe and dumps all the extra things out, and then the bots need to do more work. That's not happening. It's only requesting 1 building's worth of stuff, and then it makes that building, and then it picks a new building from the list. And what we're also doing is we're randomizing and we're sorting differently on the buildings list. So what's happening is we've got some buildings that are making the first building in the list of what we want to make. There's some buildings that are making the last building, and there's some that are making random ones. And so it's kind of fun because that way we ran into some issues when it was only ever making the building on the front of the list, because sometimes we needed the buildings later down the list. Like if we needed 30 of building A, 10 of building B, but maybe building B is an input, that wasn't working properly. And so by having some start at the bottom, some start at the top, and some do random, we haven't had any issues with the whole thing freezing up since then. It has a reset button over, I lost my reset button right here. I just turn this on for a moment and turn it off and it just dumps, it resets all the buildings, dumps all the stuff back into provider chests. Other than that, this complexity down here is mostly just because I'm using logistics network channels. So these buildings are available for the base-wide bot network, like literally the entire, where's the button? The entire base has one bot network for construction, and those buildings are available to be built. However, we don't want the buildings that are used as ingredients to be in that channel, because this area has its own channel. It's on channel 1. So all of the ingredients for buildings are not being brought from all across the entire base, because that would take forever. Instead, they're all sourced locally, right here, you know, local small businesses. And that way, you know, the bots have a much shorter trip to make. But the problem with that is now, when you need one of these buildings for an input of another building, it's in the wrong network. And so we had to then make some fancy circuit logic to when a building is asking for ingredients that need to be taken out, then they get put into these. And sometimes we've gotten some leftovers for things. I don't know exactly how to fix that, but more or less, there's not a lot of leftovers and off by however many issues. So I've been pretty happy with it. Excuse me, getting a little bit of a dry throat. This has been a long stream. And then down here is just all your classic auto mall or bot mall items. These are not circuit controlled. It's just like, I want to make so many of this item, so many of that item. So for things that you need in large quantities, this is your go-to. And then the auto mall is for all the weird buildings like, oh, random biofactories or crackers or gasifiers, or, you know, all that sort of thing. And so we don't need a separate building for everything. So if you are interested in my blueprint, just feel free to ask on my Discord. And back to the milestones. So after logistics bots, we were able to, oh, I was like, wait, we already had logistics science. We got 10,000 logistics science. Then we started working on better iron and copper. So we got molten iron and copper going. I think you guys have seen our metals facility before, but it's been reworked a bit. The iron section is doing the slimed iron now, which goes into molten iron, which then you can cast directly into the iron plates with some borax and castings and hot air, of course. And then a little bit later, I think we did molten steel, which just is a lot more effective. And that uses kind of the same molten iron plus coke plus oxygen to make molten steel. What's up, Crackalakin? Howdy, howdy. We did get Pi2 science. It was very exciting. And then, yeah, this is our copper build. Copper's a pretty big one. Took up pretty much the whole space. But it's making a bunch of copper plates, and yeah, there's not too much to say about it. You know, you just process all the things and all the steps. One of the things I really like about pyanodon's is that you don't have the same thing for every ore. Every ore is different. You know, we look at tin, we look at copper, we look at iron. They're all different. They all have different requirements. They're similar. A lot of them use screeners and crushers and washers and ball mills. But like the order you do things in is different, and the outputs of each thing is different. So there's really no copy pasting between the different metals, which I find exciting. And then what was next? We got red hot coke. I think we actually made red hot coke first for hot air, if I'm remembering correctly. So we made our hot air factory down here, which inputs a bunch of coal, regular coal. That gets turned into red hot coke, which makes the coke oven gas. And then we can reheat the coke oven gas with hot molten salt. And we make the hot molten salt just with whatever fuel we've got from the red hot coke and the coal. And then that gets us 95% of the coke oven gas that gets used to heat the bricks gets to be recycled. So we don't have to make that much coke oven gas in the first place. And then the bricks kind of just cycle around. First you warm them up with the hottest air. Or no, sorry. First you warm them up with mid-tier air, but then you warm up the warm ones with the hottest tier air. So it's kind of a reverse, like the hottest coke oven gas is going this way, and the beginning bricks are going this way. It's kind of like the sour gas boiler in Oxygen Not Included, if you know what I'm talking about. And we've got our hot air stored up here ready to go onto trains. Train network's grown a lot. I mean, if we look at the LTN inventory, like, look at this. We've got a lot of things in our inventory here. On network ID 1, we can see the actual requests that we've got going on. We might need to look into some of these. We could actually have some deficits. Some of them are not problems, but some of these are problems. And a lot of them are in transit, right? So like it's requested and in transit. It doesn't remove it from there until it arrives. So, but like acid gas, I guess we're running out of sulfuric acid, things like that. But we've got a lot of trains going on now. Yeah, what's next on the oh yeah, oh man. The last 100 hours has been great. So there you can see we did stone bricks, which was the hot air. We made Kickalk and Fawoji and Ulrichs, and then we'll get to Arcads in a minute. But Kickalk is not too crazy of a build. It's pretty standard stuff that goes into your basic flowers. I guess they have lamps. That's the weird one for Kickalk. You do need clay, but clay is just sand or no, it's just steam from a clay pit. And then the sand is just, you wash some soil to get the bigger bits out and you get sand. Kickalk seeds just recycle from their own thing. This is a big sushi belt. It's a very large sushi belt. It goes all the way around this whole build. And they're all stopped right now because we have enough Kickalk in our output here. But yeah, and then the lamps come in. So everything's delivered via train now. And we've got some really big craziness. I don't remember when we set up the super trasher. Did we talk about the crap in the last... I don't remember if the crap existed yet in the last milestone. Or... milestone. Base tour video. So the crap is my centralized repository for animal processing. And it's grown a lot since the last one, even if we did have it. But it essentially has the brains to figure out, do we have enough of item A or B or C? And then for each different type of animal that we can process, we have a different threshold on when we want to process that animal. So there's only one way to make formic acid, which is Vraux. So if we have less than 95% of the formic acid that we want, which is, and these are percentages, so it's really 15,000 or 150,000, then the Vraux rendering will kick on. And so it's a cool system because it only renders things that it needs to. And then that way we know, like, we can render Vraux for meat, but we would only ever render Vraux for meat if we were under 40% of our meat goal. And instead we've got AUGs that will get rendered for meat if we need anything above 95%. So it's a pretty cool system. It's had some issues, and we might need to add more slaughterhouses. Eventually we'll have beacons and modules which will help speed this situation up, because part of the problem is just we want it to respond quickly, like when we get low on something because a train picked up 2,000 of it, we want it to render all the animals it needs to get that 2,000 meat pretty quick. Otherwise we can get into some trouble. And here are the fluids. We've got formic acid, blood, fish oil, arcad venom, and arthropod blood as well, coming from the crap. So that, I was pretty proud of this system. This thing right here is just checking to see if we don't have enough Vraux in total in the buildings. It'll say, hey, don't actually try to render Vraux right now. So that guarantees that these buildings are only going to try to render things that we actually have available to render. So there's that. And then up here, we're turning excess brains into lard and excess guts into hydrogen chloride whenever we get extra of those. Which, oh, sorry, I guess we only turn guts into hydrogen chloride if we, if this isn't full. And this is a high priority provider for hydrogen chloride. So that's how that works. What was next? I think Arcads was next. I guess we did Fawoji and Ulrichs as well. Let's take a look at those. Those are basic builds, you know, nothing too crazy. Fawoji is down here. This is a super simple one. It literally just needs spores. So that's just getting loaded onto trains. And then Ulrichs are over here. Ulrichs are pretty simple too. They just need Ulrich food and Relasia seeds and Ulrich cubs, and the cubs just need Ulrich food and Fawoji. So that's that. Why are my water barrels? We might actually have a problem here. We do not have a problem. It's just that Ulrichs are backed up. As soon as the Ulrichs flow, the water barrels will start flowing and we'll have enough for that. So we are fine, even though it looks not fine. And then Arcads. Arcads are monstrosities. They are monstrosities in terms of their looks, because they are giant, scary wasps. And they are monstrosities in terms of the complexity of the build. Getting your mind around the Arcad chain is pretty difficult, and it's very gamble-centric. You have to gamble to get your first Arcad queen, because the queens are the ones that lay eggs, but you cannot make a queen directly. At least not without a special turd recipe, which you can only get until later anyway. So to make an Arcad queen, you have to basically grow up a nest into a chance, a 1% chance at an Arcad queen. And you can only make nests with maggots, and you can only make maggots with Arcad eggs. And so how do you get the first eggs? You know, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, in this case, neither. You actually have to make the first eggs with the cDNA recipe, which I'm going to find somewhere here, this one, where you're actually, you know, so you're using the cDNA recipe for just a chance at getting an Arcad queen. So unlike the other ones where you only have to make a few, you have to make a lot of these to get Arcads going. And I mean, the brief overview is that you feed Arcads, which not many of them are running right now. In fact, none of them are running. I guess these are running. You feed the Arcads some Ulrichs, and that creates Arcad honey, which they put in the honeycomb. And then you have to centrifuge that honey out of the honeycomb. And then you use that, well, you use the barreled honey for something else, but you actually use the honeycombs and caged Vrauks to make the maggots. And the maggots actually, you know, grow, they eat the caged Vrauks. And then you put the maggots into a Vrauk to make an Arcad nest. So these are like parasitoid wasps. You know, they're laying the maggots are growing up inside an Arcad. And then you need Vrauk food for that. Oh, that's where all the Vrauk food is going. We're actually out of Vrauk food right now. I need to put that on my list. Vrauk food. And then finally, once you have the Arcad nests, those can grow up into new queens, or you can send them over to the regular Arcad facilities to grow up into regular Arcads. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of inputs. There's a lot of loops. There's a lot of things that come from two sources, but you need to regulate which one's coming from which source first. It's all complex, but thankfully we eventually got enough queens. And so this is all running smoothly for the most part since we set it up. And then, hey, here's my sap, in case you care. I guess we forgot to put sap modules in these. Or sap tree modules. I don't know when or why that happened. That's probably been the case for like 50 hours, because I don't remember how long it's been. Anyway, those are Arcads. Then we had Tufra and Vrauk Mark II is next. These three were all Arcads, by the way. Tufra and Vrauk Mark II. Tufra is needed for py2 science, but not in huge quantities. We need some for Corlex, which is like the cows. And then we also needed Tufra for something else. What was it for? Here, I'm not going to remember. Maybe it was just the Corlex. We could also use it to make A-type molasses to make sugar, which I thought we needed for Arcad reproduction, but we didn't. That's a whole Mandela effect that happened to me where I thought we needed something that we couldn't get until a later tech tier, but we actually could get it. I was convinced it was in blue science and it wasn't. Anyway, so that's Tufra, and then the other thing was Vrauk Mark II. Ugh, we were not lucky. It took us, I think we were in the bottom 5% or lower for Vrauk Mark II rolls. It took so many rolls to get our first one, but once you get your first one, they reproduce pretty quick. And now we have plenty of extra Vrauk Mark IIs for when we want to add more facilities, which is actually on my list to do right now. I'm uncertain. I might go away from the... Right now we're using the Vrauk food recipe, but I might go away from that and go back to this and just have more Vrauk paddocks. Because the only real cost to this is moss. We can put it near a flora patch, so we get tons of flora. And I'm starting to wonder if Rauk food isn't quite worth it, because it's kind of expensive. Anyway. What else to tour? What else? Whoa. Where's my list? So we got sugar, which was needed from the tufa to make wax, but I didn't realize we could make wax from arcad honey, which you can. Fertilizer at 167 hours. We needed fertilizer for sap treat Mark II. I think I set that up over here. Kind of a little loop here where the sap trees go into that, and then we get sap seeds. We did need bone for bone meal over here, but I was able to get almost 200 sap tree Mark IIs for that. So there's that. The milestone, I just have it sorted right now. It's the same setup as normal. It's using the full Pi, or full Pi mods with a space, which I believe is the official one. And then, yeah, so molten steel was next. We already looked at that. Sulfuric acid and cobalt fluoride. This was when I was starting to realize, like, we're not that far from Pi 2 science. So that was all built up here. Here's the cobalt fluoride. We needed a lot of various ingredients. We needed our rare earth ore. I guess rare earth oxides weren't on this list, were they? Huh. That feels like a weird one to leave out, but we did make rare earth oxides at 1.2, which is a whole ore processing chain that needs ammonia, and it needs sulfuric acid, and it needed, I think, one other thing. Maybe that was it. But then you get your rare earth oxides, and we're mining the rare earth ore somewhere. There's all sorts of stuff going on here. So anyway, that got us to our cobalt oxide, and Decalin is part of the same chain because you want Flutec PP6, and Flutec PP6 is used to make artificial blood, and we need artificial blood for Pi 2 science and other things with Pi 2 related stuff. So yeah, that's all kinds of messy stuff. Cyanic acid comes from coal and methane and ammonia. This nonsense, by the way, is it's a version of a super trasher, which I think I haven't talked about yet. I might have, but basically each of these fluids is available to the main network, the main train network, until we get above a certain amount, at which point the rest of it is made, so everything above 50,000 is made available to the other networks. And I should probably make that slightly lower. I just realized that should be like 48,000. Because otherwise it's exactly 25,000, which is exactly one train. You don't want things to be quite that close. Anyway, the trash network will then pick up the rest when it gets totally full. Now, I won't ever have a trash network request for artificial blood, so you don't have to worry about artificial blood getting trashed. But the tailings, on the other hand, can be. So all 6 of these are hooked into one of these pipe networks, and this is the trash pickup, and this is the regular pickup. You can't have them at the same pickup because it's complex, but you can't have part of what's being supplied to a station available on multiple channels at the same time. So like if I wanted only the tailings to be on channel 2, I can't switch this provider to channel 2 because then now the artificial blood's available on channel 2 as well. So you have to have 2 separate pickups if you want to do something like this. It's confusing. Also, I don't think we talked about a lot of this stuff. This is kind of one of my favorite parts of the factory. This is like all of the oil-based stuff, like condensates get processed here. And so condensates come from raw gas processing, and then they get turned into refined natural gas, BTX, and tailings. And that refined natural gas then gets processed with some gasoline back into condensates and naphtha. So we get tons of naphtha for free. You can see I'm completely filled up on that. Is that bad? Wait a second. I think I'm forgetting. I think we need to void naphtha. We need to void extra naphtha there, because I do want this to fully recycle all of the condensates into the refined natural gas, partially because that gets us more BTX and tailings. And BTX can be used to make things like methane and lots of other Like you can make benzene out of it, you can make xylitol, you can make ethylene, and it's also just a decent fuel at 1 megajoule per unit. And then the tailings can be used over here to turn into some acid gas, and the acid gas can be used to turn into sulfuric acid. So it's kind of this whole like, condensates actually get you some sulfuric acid. It's not very much, but it adds up. And we get a lot of condensates. This is making methanol just straight up from syngas and some plates, and that gets provided to the network. This is where we make lubricant with ash and fish oil. And this is formaldehyde, which is kind of free because that refined natural gas was being recycled anyway. And so we get tons of refined natural gas. It does use hot molten salt, so we have to have some salt or coal power plants as well there, but that gets us free formaldehyde, some extra carbon dioxide, because why not? There's another train fluid super trasher system over here. We got all kinds of nutty stuff going on. Here's our ash processing. Whenever we have too much ash, it gets brought over here. We have 8 loaders unloading from that train stop, or from the wagon, and then these belts are all coming out of the thing. And first we turn it into rich clay to make sure we have enough rich clay for the base. And then if those are filled up, then we can separate the ash into coal dust, iron oxide, and soot. And then the soot gets turned into silver and gold plates. I guess we haven't been seeing a lot of ash deliveries to here recently, though. I'm not sure why. I wonder where our ash has been going. Oh, you know what? There's another thing we never did, which was hook up this ash to the train system after I set up the ash processing. Connect ash. A base tour is a good time to work on your to-do list. So that, yeah, we worked on all that. What's next? We did sea sponges. Silver came from the ash processing, which we already talked about. So let's talk about sea sponges and Zipier and Fish Mark II. So sponges aren't too crazy, but we've gotten jammed up on this a few times now, and it looks like I've done it again. How did it happen this time? Question mark, question mark. Yeah, sponges are busted again. I thought we figured it out so that it couldn't ever break down, but check sponges again. Needs to be on my list. Anyway, sponges are very simple in terms of the actual production. It just uses some Zognobacteria muddy sludge, the sprouts, and the sprouts come from sponges. You cut a sponge in half, now it's 2 sprouts. You grow those up into sponges. It's a very simple process. Apparently, I've screwed it up like 5 times in a row, though. I don't know how. But thankfully, the sponges don't spoil, but the sprouts do, which is where our issues have come from. I thought we had managed it. Guess not. So that's sponges. And then we set up Fish Mark II over here. That is expandable for more fish in the future. And we took the turd upgrade that allows you to get free fish food from making fish, which is super useful because fish food is not cheap. I mean, look at the price for 3 fish food here. It adds up to be a lot. Especially that lard is annoying and the bones are kind of pricey. And, you know, it's quite a bit of Fuwoji seaweed and plastic too. I mean, when you look at all these, they do utilize like 0.12 fish food per second if we didn't have the turd. So anyway, we get lots of extra free fish food out of these because now it uses 1 but produces 2. And we actually have so much extra fish food that we have to compost the excess. But then that gets prioritized to get used back in the fish. So it all works out. And then the fish, some will go into the network and some get fed into the Zipier area. So Zipier eggs and Zipier themselves both eat fish, and stone wool, which is gravel and coke and steam, and then pressurized water and phytoplankton are needed. We need some substrate over here. So that's all coming in on trains. And then the we've got plenty of Zipier for the future. I'm not rendering them at this point because they don't give you anything that you're not already getting. We already get arthropod blood from arcads, and we're not even using arthropod blood yet. So it's really just the Zipier eggs that we needed for Pi 2 science. So that was Zapier. That was at 188 hours. Then the next thing we worked on was Corlex, and casein is from the milk that Corlex make. And so that's over here, our little Corlex plant. And we bring in fish and tufra and whatever else they needed. I guess that might have actually been it. Oh, and Corlex food. And then they're pretty simple. They eat tufra and kickalc and Corlex food to grow the pups up. The pups need food and tufra seeds. Oh, they need the fish hydrolysate, which comes from fish sodium hydroxide and a little bit of sulfuric acid. So they do need some of that to make the pups. But that's only to make the modules. This is not a loop where like you consume the Corlex. Once you've got the full-grown Corlex, you only need the fish, Corlex food, and tufra to make milk. So these will fill the milk barrels, and we have 2 milk unbarrelers because there's 2 different things we need the milk for, which is the casein, which is the solid form of like, you know, milk proteins and stuff. And then there's the processed, or no, sorry, there's just the unprocessed Corlex milk also goes directly into a tank because you need some of that for Pi2 science. So that's the thing. And yeah, that's the Corlex. What's next? Gold came from the soot processing thing we already looked at. There's Yadels, which was the last kind of milestone before the Pi2 science. So here's Yadels. They're very similar to Fuwoji. They need spores, but they also need some extra stuff like fertilizer, wood, and the fungal substrate, which is just logs and biomass. So that's very cheap. So there's our Yadels build. You need those for flavonoids, which is needed for Pi2 science. So all of that was needed, plus a million other things that, you know, we haven't shown here, like expanding my petri dish production. Apparently don't have a power pole there. Let's get that built. Because we needed more petri dishes. My Zogna bacteria production. We needed to make regular fiber from raw fiber, so that's there. This is where we make the fertilizer. What else is new? I mean, here's stone wool and microfiber for filtration media. And the filtration media is needed in a few places. I think we're mainly using it for Fish Mark II right now. But we also can use it to work on syngas from dirty syngas, which comes from bitumen, which would be oil sands. So that's an option for eventually. And then there's a few other things filtration media is used for. But yeah, that's most of the stuff. Oh, in my glassware facility, we did set up all new glass stuff connected to trains at some point. I don't remember exactly when that was. Most of the old base is still doing what it's doing. A lot of these things are no longer really being used anywhere, so at some point I'm gonna have to run through, like, especially now that we're not making Pi Science 1 or Logistics Science, we're not making those here in the old base anymore, so there's a lot of things that are just laying dormant, and we're gonna have to look into those and repurpose them. Or make a new version of it that's actually on trains or whatever. Down here, I think this already existed 100 hours ago, but it's certainly grown a bit. Our stone mining and kerogen processing facility. We're also going to be running out of stone bricks because we need an absurd amount of stone bricks for automation science. The amount of automation science we need per second, look at this, requires 14, let's see if we can find it. It's on this. 14.4 stone bricks per second. Per second. That's an entire belt of stone bricks. So that's a lot of stone bricks we need. That's 2 beltfuls of stone, you know, that we need to smelt, which is not that crazy with belt stacking and everything. So we just need to get a lot more furnaces going here, because that's nowhere near enough. We're gonna need like 5 of those. So it's not crazy, but you know, it's more than you need for a lot of pyanodon stuff. This is our seaweed facility, and nothing fancy there. I don't remember when we built that, but we needed to improve cotton guts at one point, so here's a lot of cotton guts. Sushi belt, standard. It looks like we have too much moon drops here. Huh. It actually looks like we've got a little bit of an issue here where we're overloading one side of the belt. and underloading the other side. So I may need to load one of the ingredients onto the inner side of the belt, which may or may not be an option depending on how I'm loading. Like, am I stopping these buildings? Yeah, see, these buildings are actually meant to just run until they've jammed up that entire belt with cotton guts. Wait, is that true? I don't know what I've done. Check on cotton gut sushi belt. We'll put that on the to-do list. So anyway, base tour wise, that's most of it for the last 100 hours. Our Zen garden has grown with Patreon names. If you'd like to support me making this series, please feel free to join on Patreon. And we now need to add py2science to our Zen, our yin-yang symbol here. But yeah, it's been an awesome time. I'm still having a lot of fun. Like, getting to py2science is a really huge milestone, but it opens up a whole new world again. Like, every tech tier is a really big deal in pyanodon's. So there's so much more that we can do in the py2science world. We don't even have beacons and modules yet, and there's a unique beacon mechanic in pyanodon's that's really cool. And so there's all sorts of stuff that we still haven't even touched yet. This is phytoplankton. I don't remember if we had shown that. Oh, this was a fun one. Trying to build more substrate, but like the incubated petri dishes spoil really fast. So I built these sections where it was all centered around one substrate maker, so we could get the incubated petri dishes over here as soon as possible. Or wait, what am I? Oh, okay, I thought I had gone crazy here because there was regular petri dishes in this. Why are those not being... Uh-oh. Oh. I never connected my BioCrud belt to the trasher for BioCrud. I don't even have a trasher for BioCrud. Oh. Well. Let's show you guys how easy it is when you have a nice train system. Strong side trash extension. Pop that in there. Search for BioCrud. Boom. Merge those chests. Bring this over. Keep it inside the green zone here so that the bots will build it. And done. And we can call this BioCrud from substrate, basic substrate. And TP stands for trash provide. All done. Yeah, missed that one. Whoops. And the BioCrud comes from spoiled cellulose, which is just wood and sodium hydroxide. So there you go. That is the base tour. I don't think there's much more to show. Oh, we didn't show this block, did we? Our py2science block, which we just got in this stream. Oh my gosh, this has been the last probably like 7 to 10 hours of gameplay has been setting all of this up. The number of items, look at this, look at how many requests I have on this. Look at how many requests I have on this one. Look at how many requests I have on this one. And then we have, I think, 12 fluids. No, 10 fluids. We have that science, and then we have even more solids here. It's an absurd amount. It's an absurd amount. And I'm using bots for a lot of it, but the higher speed things I'm belting, honestly, in retrospect, I maybe should have just used bots for literally all of it. Rather than, like, what's 100 bots between friends? You know, like, I should have just used 100 more logistics bots and called it a day. I think it would have been far simpler if I had relied 100% on them. Here's more incubated petri dish nonsense, trying to make these primers. It looks like we're actually out of moss, so I have that on my list. Or do I? I actually don't think I did. We also need to improve moss production, because it seems like we're not getting enough. We can just look real quick at our moss facility. Is it full? No. Not really. And we don't have enough stone. And I increased that to 40 stacks. I'm just gonna go to 60 stacks. What's the problem there? Sorry, this is a base tour episode. It looks like my stone mining's actually jacked up right now, because I'm doing something wrong. I guess that one isn't full, or I don't know. We'll fix that. That'll be on the list as well. Okay. Sweet. Well, this was a little bit longer than I meant it to be for the base tour, but this is Pi2 Science base. Like I said, they all look different, but this is mine, and I'm very happy with it. If you want to join the series, you can hop in on the YouTube side. I don't generally stream pyanodons. I pre-record them in roughly 1-hour episodes, 50 minutes. And I like to do a special stream every 100 hours, I guess, is my new thing. So hopefully you guys can be here for the 300-hour base tour as well. If you're here live, I'll be around for a few more minutes, but for those of you watching the base tour episode on YouTube, as always, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.